So I'm going to talk about something completely different in a way, but very much more nerdy, you could say, than what you've been talking about, Ian, and also much more detailed, really nitty-gritty things. So the title is The Form of Websites, Studying the Formal Development of Websites, the case of professional Danish football clubs, 1996 to 2021. I'm not going to talk that much about the football websites themselves, sorry, but I'm going to talk about how you can delimit a website in a web archive, basically. So this is my agenda. First, a few words about the topic and the analytical foci of my study. One slide about the sources and the data, and then comes a much bigger part, the challenge of delimiting a website. It includes a video because I'm going to introduce to you to a software package called Orange. Some of you may be familiar with it. And I would have liked to make it as a live demo. Of course, I can't do that. I don't have a computer here. So I made a small video at home, almost 10 minutes, so it will run at that time in the slideshow, and then I'll come back with the slides about the last points, a few formal preliminary results about the formal development of websites of these football clubs. So this is what I'm going to do. So the topic of what I'm working on, professional football clubs, the websites, the story of those websites. You can see 6 of the clubs here on the right, on your right side. I'm focusing only on 6 clubs. I'm using the national Danish football league called the Super League as my case. And I'm looking at the formal development of websites. What do I mean by formal? I mean what characterizes the website independently of the specific words, images, videos, whatever is on them. But what can we say about websites, their form, over time? So that's what I'm going to focus on. And then a part of the analysis will also be a network analysis. But in this presentation, I'm focusing on the formal development of the websites. The sources I have the websites as they were found in the Internet Archive, but the majority of them come from an extraction of the websites from the Danish Web Archive Netarkivet, partly based on Solar Wayback. As you may know it, it's a really, really smart tool. And I will, of course, this is a sort of a classical historical project, so I'll be using a lot of other different types, like press releases, different reports, printed press, radio, television, etc., etc. What you see in the bottom is the data set, or an extraction of the data set from the Danish Netarkivet. So the challenge of delimiting a website, since I'm going to study the form of websites, I need to know, well, what is the website in this collection? So one of the challenges is, or the main challenge is, and I've been grappling with that in many, many ways throughout the years, that you have too many versions of the same web page within a given period. You've all seen that in the Internet Archive. You open it, you have all the different versions. So which one to choose? And it's versions of individual web pages, so how to choose the right ones to combine them to something that we could call a website. I have, in some of my writings, distinguished between copies, which are totally identical copies, and then on the other hand, what I call versions, and that is something that is the same URL, but not necessarily the same content. And it is very, very difficult to sort of delimit in time something that you could consistently call a website, where you have these different versions from different points in time, which one to combine to say this is the website at this time. So this is what I am struggling with. And I only need then one of each web page. And the problem is you have too many. Which one to choose, how to find the relevant ones, and how to do about that. This is a quote from one of my books in 2018, and I'm just going to read it aloud. When creating a corpus, a general rule applies regarding temporal inconsistency. One may select a very short period of time which will reduce the possible temporal inconsistency while probably also reducing the amount of material to be studied. Or you could choose a longer interval, which will increase the likelihood of temporal inconsistency while probably also increasing the amount of material to be included. So the problem is, if you have all these versions, imagine them on a timeline. If you delimit your period of time to a very short period, you will get a much more temporally consistent website, but you may have too little to choose of. If you make the time interval bigger, you have more to choose from, but also probably more temporal inconsistency. So that's what I'm trying to deal with. So I was looking for a tool that could help me to find out about that. It should be able to identify and select among the copies and the versions, one thing. It should be visually pleasing. I would like to have something that's nice to look at when I have a tool. It should also help me to do informed choices. Which of these versions/copies should I keep? It should be easy to use. No programming skills. I'm not a programmer, so I don't know anything about scripting and all that. So it should be something that I could use. Off the shelf, powerful, flexible. It's a long list of things I would like to have for a software. But I found this one here, Orange Data Mining. Any of you familiar with it? Not that, a few, yeah, okay. But so I used Orange Data Mining, and I can just strongly recommend it. You can see from the video how it works. So this is screenshots from the video, and if you can make it run in the AV room, then please go.
I'd like to do it as a live demo, but it's not going to be on video. What I'm going to show is first a few words about what Orange is and how it works, and then I'll show a workflow where I select a website to make it as temporally consistent as possible. Then I remove duplicates, and then I remove versions. But first a few words about Orange. As you can see here, it's a blank canvas, and then you over here have in the left side, you have some groups of what is called widgets. I can try to unfold this one called data. You have the widgets here, and if you want to say import a file, you can just drag it over, and then you have your widget. You can click on it. You can get some settings here, and I'm going to show that in detail. If you then want to see your data, you can use a data table, and the thing is you just combine them by connecting them by a line. I always use, or very often use, some visualization tools. You have a lot of them here. If we take the scatter plot, you then just connect that to the workflow, and then what you have in your data table will be pushed on and shown as a scatter plot. You can also add text mining tools. If you want to build a corpus, we can put it in here. You can take your data, and they will go into a text corpus. You can do some pre-processing if you want to do that. As you can see in the pre-processing, you can do tokenization, etc., etc. And if we want to show a word cloud with the words that we have, you can make a word cloud here. You could also turn your text into network, so you can show a network of the words in your text using this small widget, corpus to network. So you just take it like that. And then you can use the network tools to do a network analysis. For instance, this one here, the Network Explorer. As you can see, it just works. And you can then save your network file by using this one. And then you can take your saved network file, open it in, say, Gephi, and then you can just do whatever you want to do in terms of network analysis. So this is just a brief introduction to how Orange works. It is based on Python scripts. That's sort of all the widgets, they are sort of running a Python script. You can also write your own widgets by using Python. But I'm going to show you the workflow I have used for this project. This is the entire workflow for all the different analysis I would like to do. I'm not going to show you that. I'm only going to focus on the one in the top here where I do the selection of websites. So I made a short one here which only goes through all of these steps. First thing you have to do is you have to import your file. And to give you an impression what it looks like, here is the file from the year 2006. It is, as you can see down here, 48,000 lines or rows, which means that there are 48,000 instances in the collection. It's the different football clubs. You can see the domain names here, one of them, another one here, another one here, etc., etc. And we have other columns with the language, content length, crawl date here, and a lot of information that has been pulled out of the Danish Web Archive NetArchive. So going back to the orange workflow, I start by importing this file. It's called 2006 for the year 2006. As you can see here, it has already registered that it's the number of rows that we just saw. There's a number of settings here. I am not going to go into details with that. I have already loaded it, but you can do a lot of settings here when you import it. So data have been imported, and then I always use the one from the data here, the data table. I always have a data table every time I've done something, as you can see here, just to see the data. So I can click the data table. As you can see, 48,000 something, and these small windows here are extremely important because they show how much data comes in and how much data goes out. 48,000 comes in and the same number comes out. So my data are there. Now I want to choose the club that I would like to study. I use the tool select rows, and it does what it says. It selects a number of rows based on some criteria. I have decided to select here in the domain column anything that contains the word, and this is one of the names of the football clubs, Brügger.com. So give me all the rows with the domain that contains, in the domain column that contains Brügger.com, and then I only want to have HTML documents, not images, not video, etc. So all the ones where the content type normalized is HTML. As you can see, it's a scroll down menu. I could have chosen other ones, but I go with HTML because that's what I need. I could also add more conditions if need be. So I have chosen the club, Brügger.com. Again, I have a data table showing the result. As you can see here, domain is Brügger.com, so it is the right ones, and they're all HTML, as we can see in the column out here. This one here, content type normalized, all HTML. If we go one step back, we can see when I did the selection here, marked that 48,000 entries and only 164 live up to the criteria that I've set up here. So it's 164 that will then be sent forward to the next process. And this is the result of that. As you can see, 164. And that's what we have to work with in the following processes. Then I have to choose the half year that I want to study. As you know, football is played in two half seasons, in the spring and in the autumn. So this one here, this scatter plot, shows, as you can see here at the bottom, the date and the HTML files. Every time there is a dot, it's an HTML file. And as you can see, it is split, of course, in the spring and in the autumn. I'm going to focus on the autumn. So easy way of selecting here is that you simply just mark all of those. As you can see, they become marked. And you can see down here again, we had 164 coming in. I have now selected 133. If I selected the ones over here, you see it was only 31. So you can easily see what you do here. So I select these ones. Now we're down to 133. And again, they are pushed forward to the next step. So again, I have a data table showing, okay, I can see it's the right website and all that, and it's 133 that are now pushed forward. And then I want to choose the best period to study. And this is where it comes in about keeping the highest temporal consistency. Again, I use a scatter plot, and you can see here the size of the dots indicates how big it is in terms of length. It's this one here, content text length. And as you can see, it's quite scattered. It goes from beginning of October to something late November. If I do want to know exactly which dates one of the documents is from, I can just hover over here. And then, as you can see, it tells me here that the date is from the 1st of October for this one. So I could say, maybe I would try with this group here. It's a time span of 10 days, maybe. It gives me 35 documents. Maybe that's not good enough. I will go for this group here. It spans from 19th October to 4 or 5 November. 2 weeks almost. It gives me a little bit more. And I could also go for this one here, which is probably the most temporally consistent from this period here to this period here. And it's 50 documents. I think I'll go with this one. So now I have made what I would say an informed choice about what is the most temporally consistent one of the options that I had to go with. Then follows the next 2 steps, and then we're almost there. Again, I can check the data here. I was down to 50 documents. Then I want to remove the duplicates. I do that based on the hash, and I use a filter widget. As you can see here, it filters on hash. Close that, which brings it down to 48. So there were actually 2 duplicates in the data set. The next one is that I remove the versions, and the versions is identified by the same URL. So it's documents that share the URL, but that are not exactly identical, because if they were, they would have been already discarded based on the hash. So as you can see here, we start with 48, and we're actually down to 22. So there were actually quite a lot of versions in this data set. And then the data table here shows, okay, now we have what I would call the website as it looked in the autumn in this period. We have delimited the most temporally consistent period. We have removed the duplicates and removed the versions. So we're actually down to 22 web pages. And then, of course, you can export that, save it. You can save it as an Excel file or whatever you want to save it by.
Good. So back to the slides, back to real life. So now I'm on live. A few slides to finish with, because I would like to give you an impression of what can you then say if you have delimited all these websites from football, soccer clubs in this way I just showed you here. What can you say about them? So this is just an insight in what I would like to do. I'm very much inspired by the book you can see the cover of here, The Form of News by Barnhurst and Nerone. What they do is that they study newspapers' form or format in a historical perspective. It's really a great study. So I would like to do something like that. What can we say formally about websites and how they looked, how they have developed? So what I would like to focus on is this list here. The one that with a strike through is the one that I haven't made. But it could be looking at the length and the breadth of web pages. How long, how broad are they? Number of pages per website, number of levels, pages per level. Number of characters, number of images, videos, and whatever we have on it. The size of images. Do images become bigger, smaller, whatever? The navigation, the menu, is it horizontal, vertical, how many submenus and all that. That is what I would like to study when I study the formal things. I haven't done all of it, as you can see, but and I'm going to talk in the following 2 or 3 slides about just only one football club, AGF, which is the one that comes from my hometown. So this is a way of showing what I call the structural properties of a website, about the number of levels and the number of pages. Maybe, and it's for 5 different years, 2000, 2006, 12, 16, and 20. Maybe start with the one from 2012. It's the easiest way of explaining it. You should read it like this, that you have the different levels from the top-level domain, which is the top. Then comes a slash, which you then go one level down, which is the next level, another slash, you go one level further down, etc., etc. So this is a way of illustrating the form of the websites in terms of how many levels from the top is it. And as you can see in the beginning, they're not very deep. They're also not very broad. Then in 12, something really, really new happens. It becomes extremely deep as a website, but also quite broad at some points. I call this the Christmas tree structure. And then the following years, it becomes even broader, especially on the third level, and then smaller as you move down in the levels of the website. So this is a way of illustrating, I would say, the structural properties of these websites, of this website. Also looked at the number of characters in total and per page. It's another way of saying, do websites become more text heavy or less text heavy? And as you can see, the number of characters, the blue ones, they grow over time very much. And if you then combine that with the number of pages and see the average of text on each page, you can see the yellow or the orange one here. The orange one, I tried to illustrate that in another way, like this here. You have some text, you have some graphics, a small cube, and then you have a photograph which should illustrate pictures, photos. And they are made for these 5 years so that they relatively fit. So in 2000, there's not much text. There's actually quite a lot of graphics and no images or no photos. And as you can see, as we move along in 2012, much more text, much more graphics, and a lot of photos as well. Again, 16 and 2020, even more text, even more graphics, but less photos actually. So the size of the cubes, the size of the camera illustrates the actual number of photos and graphics. So this is a way of illustrating the formal property of the websites in terms of text and graphics and photos. And that was it. Yeah.